Hey everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to my channel, and as you can tell from the title of this video, we are finally going to talk about The Camorra Chronicles by Cora Reilly. I read the series at the end of April and sort of like beginning of May, and I'm completely obsessed. So I wanted to share the series with you and my thoughts on it. Before we jump into all the details about the series, though, I want to thank everyone who watched my last video. Not a whole lot of comments on the video, but I had a few people that reached out to me privately through Messenger, things like that. And I appreciate all the comments and kind words. And thank you for allowing me to have a little ranting moment on YouTube, but all is well, and we're going to get back to it. All right, The Camorra Chronicles by Cora Reilly. So, as you guys know, I read her first series, the Bound in Blood series I read from her last fall, and I can't remember when I read it, but I knew I read it when I was in the old apartment before I moved into my new house. So I'm wanting to say it was like September, October, November-ish range was when I read the entire series, and I liked it. And I gave them good ratings, but I remember at the time, my biggest complaint was like the amount of violence and the sex scenes, and that I didn't really feel like not all of the books that I really feel the connection between the characters that I really wanted to feel. And I just didn't care about some of the subplots and stuff all that much. So I liked the series, but I didn't love the series. And so I was kind of really iffy about whether or not I wanted to continue on and read the Camorra Chronicles, because I knew that the first book in the Camorra Chronicles was about Fabiano, who is the younger brother of the sisters who are in the Bound in Blood, the other Mafia series that she has. And so I was kind of like, I don't know that I want to continue or not. And I kind of was like, no. And then finally I was like, you know what? I'm doing all this Mafia reading anyway because I'm writing my book and I'm on this whole Mafia kick. I started reading one or two to kind of get the feel of the Mafia world and different types of Mafia and different ways people do Mafia books. And then before I knew it, I was on like a 6-month Mafia reading binge. So anyway, I of course had to revisit Cora Reilly because anybody who reviews Mafia, talks about Mafia romance, or talks about what are some of the best Mafia romances that have ever been written, they're going to talk about Cora Reilly because she's up there. I mean, really, her books are, in my opinion, unbeatable when it comes to Mafia romance. There's a couple authors that come very close, but she's like very high caliber when it comes to that particular, is it a trope, a genre? I don't know what you want to call it, but Mafia romance. She is like the person everybody wants to meet. So I was really excited to kind of revisit her books because I had several people tell me the Camorra Chronicles are better. They are not lying. I love this series so much better than I liked the first series, which is kind of funny because the series are very intertwined, right? So like, they talk about some of the characters in this book. This series are from the old series, and some of the old series stuff is mentioned in the news. It's very like intertwined. It's the same world. It just focuses on a different like faction, different family of the whole Mafia world. So anyway, the first book is called Twisted Loyalties. It is Fabiano, who is the younger brother of the sisters in the first series. And in this particular book, this is how you find out what happens to him as an adult. And, you know, without getting too spoilerish, because some of this is actually mentioned in the previous series, his father tries to kill him, and he ends up being taken in by the Camorra, which is the Las Vegas Mafia family. And it's run by the Falcone brothers. Ramo, I think it's Ramo or Remo. Ramo? I'm going with Ramo. Falcone is like the leader of Las Vegas. And long story short, they take him in and they make him part of the Camorra, and he has worked up. And so he's like the enforcer for that particular Mafia family. It's about him falling in love, and he falls in love with someone who's not in the Mafia world. So this is all new for her. And I really loved that romance. And as soon as I read it, the one thing that really stood out to me, that really hooked me from the very first book, is that even though Fabiano is not an actual blood relative of the Falcone brothers, he has basically been adopted into that family as one of their brothers. And that's what sold me, was the relationship between the brothers, because they're these big bad Mafia guys who are like running the Camorra and are the ones they're running it. I mean, they're all the big top Mafia people. They're hurting people, murdering people, and they have such a horrible reputation in the previous series. And they're like these brothers that like really love each other and have each other's back and have a really tight family, I want to call it a relationship, bond, whatever you want to call it. So I loved this book, and that's what hooked me, and that's what had me continue to read, was that number one, I wanted to see what happened to Fabiano as an adult, and number two, I fell in love with the relationship between the brothers. And so I was absolutely hooked from book one. Book two is Twisted Emotions, and that is the story of Nino and, oh, I'm drawing a blank. Nino and the chick. What's the chick's name? Serafina? No, that's the third book. I can't remember her name. I'm drawing a blank. But anyways, the second book is Nino, who's the Ramo's brother, and whoever this chick is, because I'm drawing a blank, I can't remember her name. If you've read the series, you can comment below. Long story short, this particular book is a lot of people's favorites. If you ask them about the Camorra Chronicles, they will tell you that book two is their favorite. For me, actually, book three is my favorite, but book two is a very close second. And book two is basically the situation where they're trying to find peace between them and another Mafia family. You might remember from the previous series, it's the one that Luca's family is part of. And they decide to marry them marry them for peace or whatever. And this is the old-fashioned, if you remember from the previous series, where they believe women don't have sex until they're married and your virginity belongs to your husband. And they have the bloody sheets ritual where you have to hang up the bloody sheets. And long story short, without ruining too much of the book, basically in this particular series, or in this particular book, the woman has been sexually assaulted by her uncle. So she is terrified that on her wedding night, her husband will find out, and then it will cause a war between the families and all of that, because she has been raped, and so she's not a virgin. And that's not what happens at all. Nino ends up being everyone's hero, and he's like, I don't care, you're mine, you belong to me, and I'm going to definitely give them bloody sheets today, but it's going to be in the form of me killing the uncle who raped you. And that shouldn't be as attractive as it is, because it's murder, but you're kind of you really feel for her, and the whole book is really her kind of overcoming that, them learning to love each other. Nino, who very much has closed off his emotions due to some childhood trauma, learning to love again. And again, more of that relationship building between the brothers, which I absolutely loved. Book three is Twisted Pride, and that is absolutely 100% my favorite book in the entire series. I read this entire series, and believe it or not, I have read that book twice more. So I've read it 3 times in a month span, because I love this book. It is Ramo, who is the leader of the Las Vegas Camorra, and Serafina, who is a woman who is getting married. I can't remember. I think she's Chicago. Is she Chicago or New York? I think she's Chicago. I might be wrong. She's Chicago. Yeah, because they were trying to get Fabiano's father, spoiler. But anyway, he kidnaps her on her wedding day. Literally. She's on her way to the church, and he kidnaps her and decides he's going to deflower her and send her back. But she ends up not being what he thinks she will be. She is one of the strongest heroines I have ever really read in a book like this. Such a strong-willed person. It's such a good love story, because he really thinks that she's going to be this weak chick who's been protected all her life and has no backbone and will just do whatever she has to do to be safe and be taken care of. And she gives him a run for his money. And they are just for that first half of the book. But then they slowly break down each other's walls. And what I liked about this particular love story is that it's not him breaking down her walls. It's not like a Stockholm syndrome type thing. It's more of she breaks down his walls as well. And you actually see that they fall in love with each other. And I love it. And I'm without ruining too much more of the book, because this is kind of a spoiler as well. This is one of the better ways of handling a unexpected pregnancy, surprise baby. You guys know I don't like to keep the babies out of the romances. It's kind of my theory. But in this particular book, I really liked that twist to the story, and I think it added really good depth to the story, because you have to remember that Ramo is like the leader of the Mafia. He's this cold-hearted, like mean dude. And I actually think that them including the children and the babies was actually a good step to really show like emotional depth for his character. And like I said, I love this book. It's my favorite. It's one of my like, I want a relaxing book to read for the weekend that I can just enjoy, not worry about. I'm probably going to pick this one because I just love this book so much. Yay. All right. Book 4 is called Twisted Bonds. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I didn't love this particular book. It's another flashback to Nino and his chick, because I can't remember her name today for whatever reason. And I don't really remember a lot about the book. I hate to say that, but I don't. And I don't know why. I probably need to go back and reread it. I did like the book, but I don't know. I just don't really remember the book. Sad but true. And then book 5, sorry, I'm laughing. Twisted Hearts is about Savio, which is the third Falcone brother, and Gemma. And this one is really cute because it's sort of a like brother's best friend trope, childhood crush kind of trope kind of thing, where a lot of people don't like this book, but I liked it because it does have timeline jumps, and it starts from them meeting each other as small children. I think Gemma's like 8 years old when they first meet, and he's like, I don't know, 12 or 13. And then it shows them growing up. So then she's 13 and he's 17, and then she's 16 and he just turned 20. And like, it has all these like time jumps. So you see them throughout their childhood. You see her go from being a little girl with a crush on Savio because he's so cute. He's my brother's friend. He's so cute. And I'm just going to wear my pretty clothes and hope he gets a crush on me, even though I'm like 10. We all do that at that age. And then you see that grow. And as she grows up, he begins to look at her differently. And so it's this really nice, slow, like falling in love with each other. But then he's a playboy and he's not ready to settle down. A lot of people don't love this particular book, but I do. I think it's probably like my third favorite in the series, right? It's because I love Twisted Pride, number 1, Twisted Emotions is my number 2, and this is Twisted Hearts is my number 3. I actually really like Savio. They are a young couple though, and so a lot of the things they do that people are like, oh, they're so mature. I'm like, but technically look at their ages. She's like 18 and he's like, what, 21, 22 when they get married, something like that. So yeah, they are a little immature because they're kids. They're kids getting married. That's why they're immature. But I really did like their book. And then the last book in the series is called Twisted Cravings. This is Adamo. Adamo is the baby of the Falcone family. And through all the previous books in the series, he's kind of, you watch him grow up, right? Like I think when we first meet him, he's like 13 or something, 14, something like that. He's a young boy. It's like a young teenager when you first meet him. And when you first meet him, he wants nothing to do with the Mafia. And so that's one of the things that's kind of a concern running through the first couple books is like, is he going to join the Mafia? And then what happens if your brother is the capo and you decide not to join the Mafia? Like, do they murder you? Do they like stick you in a field some way and hide you because you know too many secrets? Like, I don't know. I don't know how that works, but I assume it would not be a pleasant situation. And so it's a concern of whether or not he's going to actually join the Camorra or not. Spoiler alert, he does join the Camorra. And what I really loved and also didn't love about this book is I didn't really care for his love interest in the book. It was an interesting twist, but I'm not into car racing, even though I'm from Indiana. Like, I don't care about racing cars. I know that's sacrilege because I live in Indiana, but I don't care about car racing. Could really give 3 poops. And that the story was very much like he was running racing for the Camorra. Like, I guess, do they do illegal racing maybe? That's what I got from the book. It was like illegal racing that he's in charge of or whatever. And he meets his love interest who happens to be from the rival Russian Bratva family. And so it's about them kind of like falling in love, but it's a lot of racing. It's a lot of weird like murdering people who like hurt his love interest. I don't know. It seemed like it was 2 things that I didn't like. Number 1, the relationship between Adamo and his brothers, particularly Ramo, in the earlier books was just such a beautiful relationship, because really Ramo raised Adamo, so it's almost like a father-son, even though it's a big brother, little brother. It's almost more like a fatherly relationship in the previous books. And then when you get to Adamo's actual book, you don't really see that relationship very much in it. There's very little time in the book between Ramo and Adamo. So I was a little disappointed with that, because I loved that brotherly bond and I wanted to see what that looked like in adulthood for him. And then secondly, what I didn't like was that in all the previous books, Adamo is like, I don't want to say he's a good kid, because he's in the Mafia and he kills people, but like he is more tender-hearted than his brothers, right? Like he's been raised to like have a conscience and have emotions, and he loves his family and he doesn't want to hurt people. He wants to see the good in people first, kind of thing. And then to see him kind of go on this like huge killing spree in this book, I'm just like, that seemed a little bit out of character, even though I understand why he did it. It just seemed a little out of character for me. So not my favorite. I was a little bit disappointed, but I do still like the book. So long story short, I would say that these books are amazing. And if you have not read Cora Reilly's like Mafia romances, because you're a little bit like, I don't know if I'm going to like them or not, then I definitely recommend that you maybe check this one out. I know that technically you're supposed to read the Born in Blood series first and then read this series second. I think you could probably get away with reading them backwards if you wanted to, because in Fabiano's book, they do sort of like revisit some of the stuff about like why he left and why he's now with the Camorra. So you could totally jump into the second series and still follow along. So super long video, you guys, but I love this series so much. Highly recommended. If you have not checked it out, you need to, because I love it. Now, keep in mind, because I do have a mixed bag of readers on my channel, this is a Mafia romance that has violence and sex scenes, so you do have to learn to skip, as I do, in the more raunchy bits. But I will tell you that this particular series is very, very well done, well written, and I was just highly impressed. So Cora Reilly, awesome series, love her books, and I actually went and read some of her standalones that she wrote. Loved those as well. I think she really very quickly is like one of my favorite authors in general, even though I know most of her books are all Mafia romances, but I think she's really good. Like she really does a good job of getting those characters like in depth and like emotional. So I love her. Yay. All right, guys, that is my review of the entire Camorra Chronicles, and this was a super long video. It's almost 20 minutes long. It's like 17, 18 minutes long. So if you're still here, thank you. But I am so excited. I'm excited to see what other people think, because I know we have the Mafia read-along thing going on right now, which I'm not participating in because I've been doing Mafia for like the last 6 months. But if you are participating, leave me a link to your video below if you are reading any of Cora's books, because I would love to hear your thoughts on it. All right, guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye.